This is Wine and the City. Welcome to Rimini, absolute scorch of a day, probably about 35-40 degrees. I'm joined by the lovely Emily O'Hare of the River Café restaurant in Hammersmith. We're tasting a couple of wines today at biodynamic estate San Valentino, the patron saint of lovers. And we are starting with a Chardonnay here, called Douai, named after the winemaker's two daughters. And it is 90% Chardonnay and 10% Riesling. So, should we have a smell?
Yeah.
See what we think?
I'm already going into taste.
A few facts about the estate. Very small estate. It's 20 hectares and about 120,000 bottles. So small production. This is the 2011 vintage, first vintage of its kind. So what are you getting on the nose, Emily?
I find it quite light on the nose. It's which I really quite like, sort of not so aromatic whites. I like to kind of do the build up of just waiting to see what's going to go on the palate. But it's really subtle, kind of lightly strawy, some really light orchard fruit. But yeah, as I said, really quite. As it seems to be the case with Italian whites, they don't seem to have a huge amount to say on the nose. It's really about the palate where they come into their own.
What was that expression you said?
Aroma di bocca.
Aroma di bocca.
Which I've been trying to pass off as my own, but actually it's Burton Anderson, where I read that anyway.
I think, yeah, on the taste there is a nice aroma di bocca. For me it's got lovely kind of crunchy, crisp Granny Smith apples, a bit of citrus there. What food would you pair this with?
Well, where we are, we're right about 10 kilometres I think from the sea, so it's got to go with seafood, and it's really
Absolutely.
light, really fresh, really lovely acidity, I guess, coming from that sort of 10% of Riesling, and it would be so fabulous with things like octopus and
yeah.
Gosh, what else have we tried last night?
Oysters, clams.
Yeah, loads of clams, loads of mussels.
Ceviche maybe.
Yum.
So lovely, Douai, absolutely great. There's the newly vamped labels here, and we are moving on, number 2. Terra di Covignano, which means the land of the hills, because we are near the Covignano hill, and it's 100% Sangiovese. We're also near Montegiuve, and Sangiovese means the blood of Jupiter, the sangre de Juve. And this one is 100% Sangiovese, available through Enotria for about 19 quid trade price, I think. So you were impressed with this wine when we tried it?
I really love it. I really love it. Yeah. It's just so bright and so brilliantly fruity without being confected or feeling too sweet. It's just so brambly, and the colour's gorgeous. It's so jewel-like. You just really, it makes you want to eat and drink and do everything, dance.
It's a lovely expression of what biodynamics can do. I mean, some biodynamic wines you get that kind of animally, feral notes, but this is, like Emily said, it's got gorgeous brambly fruit, really fresh, really bright, bit of a beast of a wine. It's 15% alcohol, but it's really nicely integrated.
Yeah,
you don't really feel
I
that.
was so shocked to find that alcohol is something I really hate to notice in a wine, when it feels kind of spirity in the mouth and it burns in the throat, but here I was completely shocked. And again, I think it's something, and there's a lovely kind of vibrancy to the wine in terms of
absolutely.
the colour and the flavour and the aroma, and
Kind of sings and dances itself.
it does, and
Yeah.
I think it's we've been told that it's really not treated with anything kind of unnatural, and you get a sense that apparently the Romans made wine here in like 2,000 years ago, and you feel like this is probably what they were drinking, or if they were lucky enough, and yeah, it feels like you're connecting to the past, and it's yeah, a really beautiful wine.
I remember writing my tasting notes earlier, full-throated roar of a wine. It certainly kind of gives you that
Crikey, yeah.
masculine pleasure. And quickly, Emily, what food would you match this with? Bit of meat.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, we had yesterday. We had this tagliatelle with ragu, which was just gorgeous, and a meat ragu. I think it was veal, and that would be probably quite nice. But you could go
Really
anyway with
versatile, I
this.
think,
It's
this
really
one.
versatile.
Yeah.
And again, I think if you chilled it a little bit to really heighten the acid, you could probably go with a kind of meatier fish like bass or turbot. So you can really do whatever you want. This is a great wine.
It's making me hungry, all this talk of food. We're about to have lunch, so I think we're going to do a little cheers from Rimini. Salute.
Cheers.